Hi, Azure. Are you ready to bake stuff? Super excited, eh? Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Cooking with Turtle. I am your host, Turtle. As the title suggests, today we are going to be making some sugar cookies. This recipe is actually pretty simple, not too difficult, doesn't take very long, so it's actually a pretty easy, beginner-friendly recipe. And on top of that, it makes quite a bit. The recipe should yield around 40 to 46 cookies-ish, depending on how big you make them. So not only can you make some for yourself, but you can hopefully share with your friends and family, because nobody would ever eat all the cookies by themselves after they make them, right? Because that would not be good. Anyway, yeah, so I'll show you what you guys are going to need for this recipe, and we'll get right started. I forgot to mention, by the way, I'm wearing an apron today. I got a new apron, so I'm officially, obviously a professional chef, because everybody knows that wearing an apron makes you a professional chef. Get out of my kitchen! Alright guys, now that you have your ingredients set out for this recipe, we're gonna get started. As always, we're gonna start with our dry mix first. Again, you can do your wet mix first or your dry mix first. Doesn't matter. I usually start with the dry just because that's just what I do. So once again, we're gonna need our trusty old sift. We're gonna grab that out. We're gonna need the flour, the baking soda, and the baking powder, and we're just gonna basically sift that all together into one bowl. So as always, we're just gonna dump it a little bit at a time. Hopefully try not to make a giant mess, because you know, nobody likes cleaning giant messes, including myself. So we're just basically gonna sift that into there as we would always do. Just gonna take a couple minutes, nothing too fancy. Once I'm done this, I'll meet you guys for the next step. I'm a lean, mean sifting machine. Alright guys, now that I have sifted all my dry ingredients, the flour's in there, the baking soda is in there, and the baking powder. Sorry, I kind of sound stuffy. I just sneezed a bunch off camera. It's great. But yeah, so once now I have all this put together, I'm going to put it aside, and I'm going to start mixing my wet mix. There's not a lot of ingredients for this, so it shouldn't take very long. So I'll see you guys for that part. So of course, while I'm cooking, I have to navigate the dog maze, which is like my floor of my kitchen. Of course, when I'm doing anything in the kitchen, wouldn't it be great if they just lied completely in the way of everything, wouldn't it? Alright guys, we have all of our wet ingredients here. We have our butter, our sugar, our egg, and our vanilla. So we're gonna start mixing this up. Once again, room temperature butter, the way to go. If you don't, you can microwave it, but I would recommend just letting it sit until it gets to room temperature. Because that's the better way to go. Better consistency, better product, better profit. I mean, but yeah, so we're gonna mix this in here, with the butter, and then we're gonna cream it together with our sugar first. So we're gonna add the sugar. There's a lot of sugar in here. So don't expect this recipe to be super healthy, because there's like a buttload of sugar. I mean, they are called sugar cookies, so you know what you're getting yourself into in this case. So we're just gonna cream these together here. Shouldn't take too long. All right, now we have it pretty much cream. It's pretty fluffy in there. It looks like it's good to go. We're gonna add in our egg. We're gonna beat it in slowly, and then we're gonna also add our vanilla here in a moment. So we'll start with the eggy. Try not to get shells in there. That would probably be bad news, I imagine. Unless your people like that kind of thing. That's just weird. All right, now that the egg is beaten in, I'm gonna add in my vanilla here. Vanilla should take just 2 seconds to mix in, should not take very long at all. Add that in. Some people also add almond extract instead of vanilla extract, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to add vanilla extract. Almond extract is more for the icing, I find, but what do I know, you know? I can't stir with my left hand. What am I doing here? It's fine though. Alright, now that's all nice and stirred up. We're going to stir in our dry mix into it, and then we're going to see how it looks from there. Alright guys, I got my dry mix here ready to go. I'm going to kind of try to shovel it in a little bit at a time. I don't want to obviously make a giant mess with this. So a little bit at a time is the way to go, because you don't want to overwhelm the mixture and kind of just start making it fly everywhere. So I would recommend just kind of like a good like handful at a time. Because this mixture isn't completely really very liquid, unlike some other cookie mixtures that you're gonna use. So this stuff is gonna get really cakey really quick. So it shouldn't take too long to mix it in. A little more. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. Start flying all over the place. Alright, I'm gonna keep mixing this in, and then I'll meet you guys when this is done. Alright guys, I think with that, it's pretty good and mixed here. As you can see, it's a pretty chunky consistency. It's pretty solid. It's pretty mixed up together really well, so I think I'm gonna be starting to put it on a sheet here. That's basically all it takes. So I have a pre-greased cookie sheet back here. Ta-da! And I'm going to be placing these on these, kind of like a little dollop or so, and then we'll get them in the oven here very shortly, so I'm going to start to do that. Alright guys, so just a little tip before we move on. Turtle's tip of the day. To make sure your cookies are all the same size when you put them on the sheet, instead of using a spoon or something like that, which can be kind of like hit or miss in terms of like the different sizings of your cookies, one good way to do it is actually using like kind of like an ice cream scoop. If you use an ice cream scoop, you can basically put the same amount of cookie dough in every single scoop. So it's kind of nice to use that way. You can get uniform little balls, and then you don't have as much problem cooking the cookies as you're going. I don't have an ice cream scoop, so I can't use it, but I do know people who do, and it's actually a really good way to make sure all your cookies cook evenly because they're all the same size. So that's your turtle tip of the day. Alright guys, I have my cookie sheet here with all my cookies. My oven is set for 375 and it's been going for a little while, so I'm good to put them in. The recommended time of cooking is usually around 8 to 10 minutes. I would just keep an eye on them because sometimes if they're a little bit bigger, it takes a little bit longer, but that's usually around the recommended time. So we're going to pop those in, and I'll let you know what they look like once they're done. Hi buddies, hello. Alright guys, while those cookies are still in the oven baking, I am going to show you guys how to make a sugar cookie icing. I decided to make an icing for these cookies. You don't have to, you can eat them as is, but today we're going to be a little bit fancy and we're going to make some icing for them. Alright, so here we have the ingredients for our icing, for our sugar cookies. It's not too complicated. You just got to basically kind of... This icing takes a little bit of kind of finagling. Like, there is a recipe for it. It tells you kind of what you need, but sometimes you may need to add a little bit more or less of something depending on if the icing's too hard, if the icing's too soft. So be prepared to kind of experiment a little bit with it as you go. So we're going to start with our cup of confectioner sugar here. We're going to put that in there. We need 2 teaspoons of milk, and we're going to basically just kind of stir that up until it's soft and creamy. 1, 2. So we're gonna mix that up here. I'm gonna get a big spoon. Big spoon. So we're just gonna kind of mix that up until it gets a little bit creamier. It might take a little bit more milk just because there's a lot of icing sugar to milk ratio here. Alright, so my mixture, it's a little bit hard to tell here, but it's pretty viscousy. I'm gonna add my almond extract. Normally they tell you to add the corn syrup first, but I want to do this before it gets a little bit too, I guess, solid. So I'm gonna add my 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract here. Mix that in a little bit, and then we'll move on to the corn syrup. That's good there, not too shabby. So the corn syrup's the same amount as the milk, so 2 tablespoons. You may need a little bit more, once again, of this stuff if it's not glossy and kind of like sticky enough, if that makes sense. So we're gonna put 1, and we're gonna put 2. So we're gonna put that to start, and then we're gonna mix it up, and then we'll see what we get here. And I'll let you guys know, in a few seconds how it looks. Alright guys, after a little finagling, I had to add a little bit of other stuff. I have my my icing here. It's still a little bit liquidy, but it's not very, very liquidy. It's pretty solid. So you can always add food coloring to it to make it a different color. Right now it's just white, and I think I'm gonna just leave it white just for what I'm trying to do with them. So you can always do that to add kind of a little bit of color and texture to them. But I think that's pretty good. I think I'm gonna keep it the way it is. I'm gonna put it away for now so that we can have it for later when the cookies are cooled. I'm gonna check on the cookies here, see how they're doing, and then I'll get back to you guys once they come out of the oven. Alright guys, time is up. We're gonna check on our cookies here, so we're gonna get them out. These guys are kind of thick mofos, so I kind of left them in a little bit longer than I should have. But they look good, they smell good. They look pretty good. They're pretty solid. They kind of have to cook to a kind of golden, light golden brown. You don't want them to be too brown because then they'll get burnt. I'll show you guys the final result here. This is what they look like. We're gonna let them cool, but they look awfully good. So I'm pretty excited with how they turned out. I'm gonna get the others on there cooking, but I'll meet you guys once we see what the final product looks like.